Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Bloom the Podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode. I'm your host, Donovan. I'm here with my co-host, Ashley.
What's up?
And we have a returning but very special guest for a video podcast, El Padre.
Hello.
It's Papa, it's Dad, it's our sound manager. He helps run all this. And we wanted to get him on the show because he's got a wealth of wisdom to share with us today.
Easy with all that wealth of wisdom. Just little nuggets here and there.
Little gold nuggets. But yeah, we're super happy to have him on the show. If you guys don't remember, he was actually on episode 3 of Bloom the Podcast. Both him and our mom was on episode 3. They talked about being first generation Christians. So if you guys haven't checked that out, go check that out. They talk about their testimony. They talk about being first generation believers and raising kids as first generation believers. So that was a super fun episode. Make sure you guys go check that out. But for today, we have a spicy episode. But before I say that, I just want to give a heads up. I had an allergy attack yesterday, y'all, and my voice is shot. So if my voice cracks any more than it usually does, which is a lot, that's why. There it goes right now. But yeah, so for today, super fun episode. It's going to get spicy. We have...
Why would you say that? Why would it get spicy?
I don't know. I just have a feeling it's going to be spicy. We're going to be talking about Christian relationships, and mainly it's going to be directed towards men. So Ashley, you know, I'm gonna head out. It's gonna be mainly directed towards men, but this applies to both men and women as they're both are involved with relationships. But mainly towards the men as it comes to pursuing marriage and pursuing relationships, handling purity, and what that practically looks like on the day-to-day for Christian men. And I know it's something that you had been wanting to talk about. I mean, we've talked about it all the time growing up. Absolutely. And it's something that's super important. And I don't think, I mean, that's obviously why we're talking about it now. We don't think it's necessarily talked about enough and in the right light. So we're definitely going to shine a light on that today. So if you guys are ready, go ahead and drop a like and strap in because it's going to get rowdy. But to start, I'm going to pass it over to Papa real quick. And when you think of Christian dating and how men should be thinking about going into Christian dating, what are some of the kind of important things to keep in mind that isn't necessarily talked about enough when it comes to purity and handling your emotions and really being intentional?
Well, I think the first thing, I think you hit it on the head. One of the things that's not talked about nearly enough is purity. Purity always gets put on the back burner. Purity is really always pushed aside, and a lot of other things are more important than one's purity. Right. That's why you don't see a lot of young people pursuing relationships and getting married, because they have many other things that are more important than their purity. Right. So,
Ashley, what would you say?
I mean, kind of going off of that, I feel like a lot of people would actually be like, oh, if you can't control your purity, then you should wait to get married, which is like the complete opposite of what you should be doing. But I've heard that a lot lately, which is like super
It's like saying if you're really hungry, you probably shouldn't eat. Just wait.
Yeah, well, it's like one of those things where it's like, it's like one of those things where it's like, oh, you need to like get down your self-control then, because bringing that into a marriage is like bad. Or kind of what AJ was telling us, you know, on the phone, that people, what was he saying that people were saying? That,
I remember. Gosh, it's escaping me.
It was a good one too. It just totally left my mind.
Here, let me get him on the phone. No.
Yeah, gosh, he'll be here later. But he was saying something about how people are using impurity as a way to justify like waiting to get married, because you need to like rein that in first, and because you're never going to beat purity, so they're saying it's a pointless battle.
Here, I found his exact words. He said that purity is not going to end if you like basically don't deal with it before marriage. So like you're gonna have impure, like getting married doesn't help your purity.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
That's what it
you're
was.
still going to struggle with lust once you get
That's
married.
what it was.
Yeah.
You're still going to struggle with lust, even
Man, that's
though
gonna bug
you
me.
get
You might have to edit that part out.
That's gonna bug me if I can remember.
No, but yeah, that's such a ludicrous thing to even,
Crazy.
because you're going to struggle with every sin as you go through your life, so why ever deal with them if that's
Right.
the case. But yeah, I agree with both of you guys. I think purity a lot of times is it's almost like taboo to talk about it. People get like really uncomfortable, and it's so awkward, and I don't know why that is. I mean, I do,
yeah,
but
I think purity is very uncomfortable to talk about because, unfortunately, a lot of people are lying about it. You know, we
Yeah.
can sit here and we can play games, but we all know that most of us, probably 95% of us, have sexual desires. And so, with that being said, the question begs is, well, why aren't we doing something about it? Why aren't we pursuing a wife? And I'm talking to men right now because I'm a man and I see this in a lot of younger men. They don't pursue relationships as they should when they know they don't have the gift of singleness.
Yeah.
So that causes a problem.
yeah. And because I think a lot of people are raised to think that they have all this time on their hands, they don't need to think about it, and it's not prioritized. So the purity, I mean, once you hit puberty and you start having those desires and those emotions, you almost have to just like suppress them, and that never works because it just ends up manifesting itself in all these other aspects that are a lot more dangerous than pursuing a relationship.
Absolutely.
So I think it's really easy to fall down this rabbit hole of, I have so much time, you know, I got to finish this, I got to finish that, and you can end up in a very sketchy spot.
I don't think the Bible would be so specific on it if it wasn't a big deal.
That's true. I mean, yeah, there are so many verses that talk about purity and talk about being married and refraining from sexual sin, and it's such a prevalent thing. And I think there's so many messages that are talked about it, and with all the messages that are talked about it, they still give you the runaround when a young person wants to get married. They're like, well, why would you, like, the question that I never understand is like, why are you doing it now? I'm like, what do you mean? Like,
Right?
what else am I supposed to do?
A wife of your youth, the scripture would say. I mean, what does that mean? Your youth, well, is in scriptural, biblical times, your youth was not 27 years old.
They were like 13.
Yeah.
Getting married.
Yeah, 13,
think-
14. I mean, Mary was 13, 14 years old, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
I mean, so when we're talking about youth, I think our youth has been dumbed down to think that, oh, we're not adults until we're X, Y, and Z, or we can't pursue a relationship until X, Y, and Z is done. And that's
actually brought that up
not
on
true.
our episode
Yeah.
about relationship roles, because they like extend the adolescence of all these people. So then you're not even really an adult until you're 25, 26, and it's like, wait a minute, man, you can go to prison at 18. You better like
But you can't get married.
like they put marriage on this like upper echelon of like tasks and responsibilities. Now obviously it's a huge responsibility and it's a huge choice.
Absolutely.
But it's not like this unattainable, unachievable, you can't conquer it kind of adult thing that they look at it as. And it's super weird to see the church put it in that light when really we should be pushing as many young people as you can. Because like you said, 95% of us don't have that gift. Let's be real.
No, we don't.
And if you don't have the gift, then we all know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean,
You know?
you can try and prepare yourself as best as possible to be as pure as possible. But the end result is to find you a wife or to find you a husband so that you can be not only sexually satisfied, but spiritually satisfied and grow.
Because that's what it's designed for.
Absolutely, 100%.
Because those feelings are put there by the Lord for a specific reason, for you to enjoy in the context of marriage. And when you, like I said before, like when you suppress those emotions and they start showing up in other areas of your life that
And
are
they
really
will.
dangerous, it'll definitely warp the way that you even enjoy those blessings that the Lord has for you to enjoy whenever you do get married, whether that's 35
Well, I
or-
think the key thing is young marriage helps you and stops you from falling into other sins such as pornography, masturbation, all these other things. That's supposed to help you so that you don't go down that path.
Yeah.
So that you are thinking, okay, my mind is pure. I have this woman in mind. I want to marry this woman. You get married, and hopefully you continue that road of sanctity, purity with that individual.
I think that's another thing is like sex is looked at as such like an evil thing these days. Like even like in the Christian world, it's like, oh, don't say that. Like sex is bad, you know? Like it's not even looked at as a good thing anymore, which is why I think a lot of people, even when it comes to marriage, it's like, oh, I shouldn't want to get married so I can have sex. Sex isn't like good, you know, like it's just been talked about like it's some negative thing and that you shouldn't have those desires and that it's not good to have those desires, instead of being like, yeah, hey, those are natural, and so with that you should take the steps you need to take to get to that point where you can do that.
But also I think that has a lot to do with what you said with like pornography and those kinds of things, because it's not necessarily viewed by the young people as a need, because they're kind of using those means, and those other things like lust and all those other things are kind of taking the role of those sexual desires. So then you can sit there in a relationship for 10 years and be like totally fine, because you're getting some kind of immediate satisfaction from these other areas in your life that are non-fulfilling and will end up having serious repercussions on not only your life but your marriage. Absolutely. So I think that's why, another reason why everyone kind of looks at it and is like, I can wait, because there's no
Well, the real question is, can you really wait?
Well, they can, because they're not. They can, because their purity isn't there, so they're not actually fighting it. It's just kind of like, well, I don't need to right now because this is taking the place of that.
Right.
And people have to be honest with themselves with those sins, and it's never easy to talk about.
I mean, if you're reading your word, you totally understand, and you can totally see how much depravity is in the word of God when it comes to sexual relations. David, a man after God's own heart. His people are at war. Where is he at? On the rooftop.
He's got his binoculars.
Got his binoculars. He's checking out a honey. Guards, I'd like to talk to her, please. Go get her for me.
That was the Bible times of, can I get your number? Send your guards and get her.
Yeah. The king has requested you. You know what I'm saying? And so, and this is David we're talking about. Yeah. I mean, and you have men who have destroyed their lives. Samson over a woman.
Yeah.
I mean, so the reality is that we are wired and by design to want these relationships.
Yeah.
By design. So what do you do about it?
Right. And that's the other thing too that I always laugh at. And I mean, it's funny, but it's not at the same time. But you go to these churches, right? You go to youth groups and these singles groups, and everyone acts like they're not there to look for somebody. It's this weird thing. There's like this unspoken thing. We're like, well, I'm not supposed to be looking for anyone. I'm here for the word. I'm here to pray and here to fellowship. It's like, no, you wouldn't be going to a singles group for prayer and fellowship. You'd be going to some other thing, or a family group. You're there for one reason, but you pretend like you're not, because the church has this weird view of like proactively looking for. It's like, oh, you're just thirsty. It's like, yeah, probably.
That's the correct answer. I am thirsty. Probably. I'm looking for a wife. I'm looking for a wife. Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's such a backwards way of looking at trying to be pure. It's just like, it's kind of wild when you really take a step back, because the Bible is so, I mean, you always say like it's better to be married than to burn. Like
Paul said
that analogy is very intense for a reason.
Yeah.
So I think it needs to be held with the weight that it holds.
Absolutely. And you know what? Like I said, you said it. Paul said it best. It's better to marry than to burn. And it's there for a reason. That scripture verse is there to let us know that, hey, you know, and look what he was talking. Look who he was talking to. The church of Corinth. That church had all kinds of sexual problems. People marrying their father's wife, and I mean, just all kinds of situations that were going on in that church that needed to be addressed because of the sexual immorality that was going on. You look at even in the Old Testament, how many of these kings had so many wives? Why do we think that is? Because they just we know why they had all these wives.
Yeah.
So the desire is there. It's just that we just need to put it in check. We need to stop lying to ourselves, and we need to do something about that.
Yeah, and like we were talking about this earlier before we started recording, the men are kind of the propitiators of the problem, because they're not seeking out the women the way that they
Absolutely.
should, because there's a weird view on it. So what would you say as far as kind of like addressing the men directly? How do you kind of get out of this vicious cycle that the world kind of has set up for, or the Christian churches have kind of set up for young relationships, and how do you attack that?
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily just the churches, because each individual is accountable for themselves regardless of the church.
Right.
So with that being said, I think there is many different reasons why people aren't pursuing, but one of the major reasons I see in the young men of today is fear. The fear of being rejected. Fear of communicating, even walking up to a young lady and asking her out to coffee or what have you. There's fear there, the fear of rejection. And I get that. I mean, but I wasn't a believer until I turned 21. So unfortunately, there was premarital sex that was going on. There was things going on in my life that weren't of God. But with that being said, I learned that, hey, rejection comes. You're going to get rejected, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But with that being said, it's okay. And so this fear of rejection is kind of perpetuated as, well, I don't know if it's perpetuated, but this fear of rejection is not pushing these guys to be proactive and even ask a girl out. And it's so easy to hide behind your phone and look at Instagram all day and check out the girls on Instagram. Well, why don't you stop looking at Instagram and go over and say something to her?
Like, I liked her picture, she better know.
So I've always thought like this. You ask out 50 girls, at least 2 of them are going to say yes. I mean, go for it. Yeah. Doesn't matter.
And that's the other weird thing too, especially with the young people. People take dates, like going out to coffee or something, just like get to know someone. Proposal. Yeah, it's like basically like, well, but just bought him a ring. Hope they say yes. It's like, no, like you're just going out to coffee to see if you two are even compatible to even start dating.
It's like, what if that person doesn't even like you?
Yeah.
Right?
Like, you're taking them out like, oh no, I might lead them on. It's like, they could think you're horrible.
Most of the time, it's not as serious as people make it out to be. Now, obviously, you date intentionally. You don't want to just be asking out people just for the sake of it. You want to have goals in mind.
Absolutely.
With what you do. But the fact that you can't even ask someone out to coffee without the whole church losing their minds, like, well, they're practically married already. Looks like it is what it is. It's like, we need to slow down a little bit. Take some pressure off yourselves, because that's so much pressure.
Well, and that's another thing. People look at people who've asked out several people, or 50 people if that matter. Listen, if you are hunting for a wife, men, if you're hunting for a wife, and that's the way I like to look at it, you're hunting because you're trying to find a woman who's compatible with you. First of all, obviously, hopefully, she's a believer. That's the number one criteria there. She's a believer. After that, you are looking for someone who's going to be compatible with you. Yeah. And you may have to ask out 50 people. That may happen because, you know what, girls, you guys have a part to play in this too. But not everybody is ready for marriage at the same time. So you're trying to figure out who is. So when you're doing that, the church needs to stand back and say, okay, yeah, this guy's asked out 50 people, and they make him he's such a bad guy. Don't go out with him. He asked out every girl in the church. Well, yeah, because he's trying to find a wife. Don't judge him for that. Commend him for it. Help him find a wife. If you know, I know this girl. She's be really good for this guy. I mean, pass along. Tell a friend. I don't know. What?
For sure. I actually have another thing to say about that, because I think that's interesting. Before we do, we actually don't have a sparkling ice ad today. We will be back next week with sparkling ice. So keep an eye out for that. We got our Starbucks today. But yeah, we'll get back into it. You were saying you might have to ask out a lot of people, and that's okay.
Absolutely.
But a lot of people take that negatively. So as a young person, how do you kind of weather that storm? Because even if you are doing that, a lot of even the females, if for the men I'm speaking for, but a lot of the females would look at that guy as kind of like either like desperate or like.
And see, that's where I think these females need to wake up. I'm sorry. This man is pursuing a wife, and if he has to ask out 50 girls to find the right one, so be it. And they need to be okay with that. Are they pursuing a man? Do they want someone to pursue them? They might go through the same thing through the dating process of trying to find the person that's compatible with them. So 50 guys may ask them out before they actually find the right guy for them.
And we talked about this a little bit on the more like aggressive females one, but like a lot of even girls are looked down upon for kind of even having their antenna up to be like, yeah, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
And that's even discouraged. So it's hard for both camps. But I think, like you said, the fear is a big driving factor.
Absolutely. Well, girls can help that fear by knowing if a guy likes you or he's interested in you, don't play hard to get. Don't make this difficult. Because it's not supposed to be difficult.
Especially if you like him.
Right? I mean, what are we doing here?
To lose a guy in 10 days.
Right? I mean,
like
help the guy out. Let him know that, hey, it's okay if you come and talk to me. Give him the look if you need to give him a look. But it's okay. This is what we're supposed to be doing. It's okay for guys and girls to talk to each other. Like you made a mention, you go to a singles group.
Yeah.
And then you have girls over here and guys over. What are we doing?
Yeah, like it's junior high, like guys.
I mean,
especially when it's a college group and it's not labeled singles group, then people are really in an uproar because they're like, "This is for the college group." I'm like,
Yeah, people are just like so uppity that they can't even like admit to themselves that they want to be in a relationship, and that's where you lose me because I'm like, it doesn't have to be like the end all be all in your life at that time, but even if you do want, it's like, dude, don't be so weird about it.
You know what it is? It's like this. It's like the people in the college group are all looking, right? So then eventually a ton of people end up dating people in the college group. And then all the single people who are looking but they can't find anyone and they're still single, they're all upset because people in the college group are dating. And then they're like, oh, see, like, this isn't supposed to be like a couples group. And like, we're totally left out, even though they are just...
They're the ones giving every guy the Heisman.
Yeah, but then they're trying to look for a guy every 5 seconds, but they're mad at us for actually dating. Like, that's just how it, like, ends up turning into, you know? Because everyone wants that, but they're all pretending they don't. So then when people get it, they're like, hey, we're not supposed to be doing that.
Yeah, it's just, like, it's such a jumbled mess that people get themselves into because they're trying to put up this front, but for who? You know, that's the thing. It's like, who are you trying to impress with your coyness of not having to be in a relationship? Like, I don't understand. Like, are you totally okay with being 35 and single? Like, if you are, then you know what? Knock yourself out.
Some people have the gift, and that's fine. They have the choice to marry whenever they want, and they don't even have to marry if they don't want. And that's the great thing about having the gift. But I've been a believer for 20 some odd years, and you know what? I've only met possibly 2 people that I believe that really had the gift. One of them was a female and one of them was a male. And so that's a lot of people I've talked to that don't have the gifts. Most people don't have the gift. So what are we doing?
And I've said this before too, like, we're all looking for the same thing. It's just, we all just pretend like we're not. And it's just sad. But on the more practical side, for both men and women, what are some good ways to kind of help maintain your purity while you're looking for relationships? And, you know, what are some kind of like good guidelines to have to kind of combat those?
Accountability.
It's really strong.
Accountability is the first thing. Well, prayer. Prayer and staying in your word is the first thing. But accountability. You got to have somebody that is keeping you accountable, who's asking you questions. Hey, how you doing in your purity, man? Just being real with it. And I think that's the problem. Christians have a problem being real with one another a lot of the times, especially about this topic, because it is a personal topic. Yeah. It is something that, you know, you don't want to go around and necessarily have to tell everybody about. But you know what? This is the catch. We're all in the same boat. Yeah. You know, so it shouldn't be something we're ashamed of. It shouldn't be something that's looked down upon. It should be something of encouragement. Hey, I'm encouraging my brother to stay pure. I'm encouraging my sister to stay pure. That's what it should be.
Yeah.
You know?
The church has and I mean, this is people in general. It's not just, I mean, yeah, it's just people. But we have this really bad habit of putting sins on like different tier levels. And like I was talking about that with Jason on the body positivity one. Like we treat like gluttony and being overweight as a completely like different sin class. And it's like, no, it's just a self-control issue. Absolutely. Same with lust and same with, you know, the purity issues. It shouldn't be looked at as like, oh, you did that, like stay away from me. It's we all struggle with this. Let me come alongside you and help you with this struggle. So we have to stop putting these sins in like these different brackets of severity and be like, oh, well, you did that, can't talk to you. You know, be encouraging to those people, because those sins are hard, and if you're really being honest with yourself, most likely you struggle with it on some level too. So have that level of compassion and love that we're called to have as believers, and come alongside those people and be a blessing, not just someone who they're afraid to talk to because you're going to judge them. Like,
absolutely.
It's tough. So I mean, we all got to fight it together. It can't just be, the walk isn't supposed to be done alone, and it's that way for a reason. That's why we have the church. That's why we have fellow believers. Get in there, get your hands dirty if you have to, and it's so much more rewarding to live your Christian walk that way.
There's another thing that comes to mind, and it's guys who have this vision of this bombshell of a woman. And man, if it's not that, I can't find this woman.
If it's not Megan Fox, don't at me.
Right? If she is a believer, a God-fearing woman who loves the Lord, and you can see that in her behavior and her attitudes, then you need to start looking at that first. And obviously, attraction needs to be there, but attraction comes in many forms. Attraction can come from the form of seeing this woman who loves the Lord. That is one form of attraction. Seeing her godliness and see how she responds to different things in her life. And then obviously the physical attraction is there too. But to have that mindset that you're just going to find this bombshell woman, and if it's not that, well, then I'm just going to keep looking, my brother, and I'm going to keep sinning in my own private life until I find that woman. That's silly talk.
And because we're also comparing women to this like ridiculous standard of like what the media shows you what women are supposed to look like. It's like, wake up, guys. People don't actually walk around airbrushed all day, okay? Wake up. Stop pretending like you're going to find some Hollywood. I mean, there are obviously really pretty people out there, and not everyone is going to look like they're starring in a movie, and that's fine. So like, get your head out of mainstream media and your Instagram and phones, and start looking at the people that are in your church, because there's honestly nothing more attractive than a woman that is honoring to the Lord. Absolutely. And living her life for the Lord.
Yeah. And same thing with guys. Same thing with girls, right?
Yeah.
Girls have that same issue. He's got to be buff, a six-pack, or this, or he's got to have that. Come on. If the guy is a believer and has a job, you better thank the Lord.
For my short.
That's like the thing also. It's like, stop going out in public and being like, oh yeah, that guy's cute. Like, I like that guy. But then at church, you're like, I'm not looking for guys here. It's like, why are you looking for guys here? This is where you're supposed to be looking.
Yeah, it's just people have this unrealistic, and people are so idealistic of what they think their relationship is going to look like. So the moment that their relationship doesn't look the way that they think it's going to look, they're like, well, I'm out. It's not for me. Yeah. And it's like, you're going to have to weather way more storms than that if you're actually planning on getting married. So you better like strap in. People are just so flighty that the moment anything goes wrong, people just up and leave.
Yeah. Well, they feel like they have many choices, especially when you have online dating, where you're just swiping.
We're going to have to do a separate episode on that. Because, y'all, it's a mess out there. It's a mess. I've seen it for myself. I'll say that. It's a mess.
It's terrible. It's terrible. And so when you have options like that, where you can just pick and choose, or think you can pick and choose, it's terrible. It gives you this false illusion of that, you know what? That's not going to work out. I have 10,000 other people I can choose from.
I have 10 other guys in my DMs. I'll wait.
It's not practical.
There was one other thing that I wanted to touch on as well, because I've experienced this. And I think a lot of people have, that you said before, and I'll let you take over. But you said nothing makes a guy work harder than a good woman.
Absolutely.
And I think that's important. So I'll let you elaborate more.
Yeah, you know what, guys? There's this sense that a lot of men think that, I can't accomplish this and that before I get married. Well, I'll tell you this. You get married, you're going to accomplish more than this and that, because a good woman will help drive you to accomplish more than this and that. You will want to be able to provide for this woman that you seek to marry. You will want to be able to be the man that she wants you to be and she deserves you to be. So with that, you will push yourself to do many things. And then hopefully she will be encouraging you to do those great things as well. And so with that, I think that, you know what, we have this illusion that, you know what, we can't succeed until we do this, and that. Well, you know what? Getting married, having a woman in your life that's encouraging you, a godly woman who's encouraging you and propelling you to do great things, that helps you. It really motivates you, you know? Mm-hmm. It really does. So, yeah, it's not hard. It's not brain surgery, man. I mean, boy sees girl, boy likes girl. Go get girl, marry her, and call it a day.
The actual timeline is more like boy sees girl, boy likes girl, follows girl on Instagram, waits a year, asks her out, they date for another 3 years, and then
That's if he gets a date. He might not even get the date. He might just be looking at her on Instagram for a year, and that's that.
And the engagement is also 5 years after that. Because,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. Let me tell you, if you've been dating a girl for 5 years and some guy comes up and takes that girl from you, you get what you get. And you know why that is? Because if you keep somebody on the hook for 5 years, 5 years or longer, we got a problem. We got a problem. That's a problem. That's a problem for both people. I don't know
how that's sustainable. I don't know how that is.
I just want to know why you would do something like that. Can someone please in the comments tell me why you would do something like that?
Well, a lot, like he was saying, a lot of people view it as I can't get married until I do this, and that, and that there's college in the way. There's this. So
let's
that.
put ourselves both in a position of temptation for 5 years. For what exactly?
Well, that's the other thing too, and I think we're talking about this. We've covered a lot of things already. We talked about this on the affections episode. You want to be able to use affection in a good way that propels you towards marriage. It's not bad to have physical touch and all those things that you can enjoy.
If it's intentional.
But if you're intentional, those things push you because you get closer. You're emotionally more attached. And those things push you to want to be with that person more. So they're I can't wait anymore. Let's get married. Yeah. Instead of just well, maybe I won't see her every day and we'll only hang out twice a month so that way we can. It's what do you mean? Yeah. No.
You know what? There's another thing that guys, we need to address. Make your conversations when you're dating these women intentional. Make sure you're asking the questions, the tough questions, so you're not wasting your time or wasting her time realizing that this is not going to work. Ask those questions about marriage. Talk about that stuff. We're believers. When you're dating, that should be the end game, is to get married. So when you're dating, ask those tough questions that are going to trigger and say, hey, you know what? Is this person for me? Am I for her? Is this going to work out? Is this good?
Yeah.
Because, you don't want to waste time.
A lot of people say that because it's the Christianese answer. When they say, oh, well, yeah, the intentions of dating is marriage. But what that actually looks like is we went to downtown Disney and everything's fun. Everything's light. It's okay, let's narrow down the nitty gritty and be okay, what do we actually have here?
Absolutely.
And because it's really easy to go out with people that you enjoy and have fun. Anyone can do that with anybody.
Absolutely.
But we're not here in the business of making friends. We're in the business of getting married. So it's you have to make that distinction and draw that line of okay, we're trying to make this more than a friendship. And the only way to do that is to see if we're compatible for marriage. So like you said, you have to be very intentional with that conversation.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%.
Yeah. Alrighty, I'm sure we'll have you back because there's so much more we could unpack with this topic. Yeah. But thank you, Dad, for being on the podcast. I hope you all enjoyed having him on. I know I did. It's been a super fun episode. Let us know what your guys' opinions are on this. We're speaking from our own personal convictions and what we believe to be true in our own lives. So everyone has different beliefs on these things. So jump in the comments. Tell us what you think. Join the conversation with us. We want to hear what you guys have to say about it. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and also subscribe for weekly uploads. We've got another exciting episode coming up next week, so stay tuned for that, and we will see you on the next episode.